Recording in progress.
I'm going to call the General Committee meeting to order. We're about 23 minutes late. It's 7:23 on November 21st. This meeting is being held in person electronically in accordance with the Municipal Act. I would like to welcome back our student mayor, Emma Vernon, who I want the city to know, while representing Innisdale Secondary School, was the only member of council on time for this meeting. So well done, and thank you for that, Your Worship. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. For the consent items, I'll read out the title associated with the recommended motions printed on the agenda. Members of General Committee may ask that an item be held to discuss the matter further. If an item isn't held, the motion is deemed to be approved on consent. No further discussion of the item will take place at General Committee, and the recommended motions will go forward to the next City Council meeting for consideration. So first, we'll go to reports of the reference committees. Report of the Affordability Committee is to be received for October the 18th, 2023. Councillor Nixon, can you provide a summary of the meeting, please?
I can, through you, Mayor Nuttall. Wednesday, October the 18th, the Affordability Committee was called to order by myself at 5 p.m., actually 5:20 p.m. The following committee members were in attendance: myself, Deputy Mayor Thompson, and Councillor Jim Harris. We also had 6 other councillors present: Councillor Rietmer, Corser, Negussie, Harvey, Morales, and Hamilton. In addition, we had 14 staff in attendance. We did hear a presentation concerning Barrie's new zoning bylaw, put on by Michelle Banfield, Director of Development Services, and Thomas Wiersba, Supervisor of Growth Management, provided a presentation concerning the community engagement process from Draft 2 of Barrie's new comprehensive zoning bylaw. There was also a presentation. No, I'm sorry, I'll just got ahead of myself there. In section B, there was a motion deferred from the September 27th memorandum, which was recommended to General Committee for next consideration, which is being held this evening. Actually, I believe it's next on the agenda. We heard a report of the Heritage Barrie Committee dated September 26th. And we added 194 Collier Street to the Municipal Heritage Register. The Affordability Committee recessed at 5:42 and resumed at 6 p.m. for the purpose of a public meeting. We heard from Lauren Dines of KLM Planning Partners regarding an application for zoning bylaw amendment at 229 McKay Road West in Ward 7. Advised the purpose of the public meeting is to review an application on behalf of Water Sand Construction for lands municipally known as 229 McKay Road West. Also, Michelle Banfield then provided an update concerning the status of the application. There were no other verbal comments provided at the meeting and no written correspondence, and we adjourned the meeting at 6:14 p.m.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon, for the update. So the report of the Affordability Committee dated October 18th, is to be received. Seeing that there's no issue with that, that's considered received. We're now going to move on to AC1, deferred from Affordability Committee dated September 27th, 2023, the memorandum review of right-of-way design standards for Salem and Hewitt's areas.
Hold, please.
That is held by Councillor Hamilton. Municipal Heritage Registry, 194 Collier Street. That's approved. We'll now move into staff reports, confidential instructions to be applied to negotiations, intermunicipal relations matter. That's approved. Amendment to the zoning bylaw, 315 Mapleview Drive West. That's That's also approved on consent. Now, before we move on to the next matter, it's my understanding that Logan Juffermans, the file manager and a planner in the city's Development Services Department, is now a registered professional planner. The applause got ahead of my congratulations. So congratulations on behalf of council and certainly on behalf of the city. And thank you for all the work that you're doing in development services and the work on this file as one of many. I'll now move on to DEV 058-23, no parking anytime, Bateau Street. That's approved. DEV 059-23, new zoning bylaw update. That's approved. LCS 015-23, lobbyist registry addition of special interest groups.
Hold, please.
That's held by Councillor Harvey. We will now go back to the first time it was held, and that's you, Councillor Hamilton. So this is the Deferred from Affordability Committee dated September 27, 2023, the memorandum review of right-of-way design standards for Salem and Hewitt's area.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Nettle, just a couple of questions, maybe some soft concerns, specifically in relation to item number B here. So I think the request was for staff to look into earmarking immediately in front of schools enough right-of-way that allows the possible construction of school drop-off zones, even when the right-of-way is lower for the rest of the road. And I see the conclusion here is that it was recommended by staff that the practice of addressing pickup and drop-off facilities should continue to be provided within the site plans of schools and not be accommodated with the right-of-way. And I guess I'm hoping for a little bit of clarity on this, knowing that in my ward, and I think it's pretty common around other wards, the biggest issues we get is speeding, traffic, but also around school zones, pickup, drop off, the chaos that ensues during that time period, some of the safety concerns. I know we're already talking about introducing crossing guard programs to sort of minimize some of the chaos and unsafe behaviors that we see. So I'm a bit discouraged by the fact that we have an opportunity here in some of the new developments to do things a bit differently and perhaps minimize some of this, negative effects that we're dealing with in our current school zone. So it's unfortunate to me that we're not going to take advantage of it. And I see the rationale here being twofold. One, we're saying that the goal of active transportation is to encourage trips to school be made by non-auto modes. I understand that rationale, but from a reality point of view, I think that's wishful thinking. I'm a mom of two. I probably have 10 seconds to spare in the morning to get my kids to school. I would love to walk or take my bike, but not a reality. Not a reality for many parents. Pick up the same thing. I'm usually about 5 minutes late, hoping I don't get clocked and have to pay for after-hour care. Again, would love to pick up and drop off via bicycle or walking, but most people who work and are carting kids off to then soccer or baseball practice, it's just a reality of your day, right? So pick up and drop offs are always going to be a headache. We always have to, even though we'd love to live in a world where people take other modes of transportation, that's not a reality here in Barrie. So I don't think we can use this rationale because it's just not ingrained in the reality of what we're dealing with. So I'd love to hear a bit more of an elaboration in terms of the rationale outside of just encouraging other modes of transportation. And then the second rationale I'm seeing here is that the responsibility of kiss and rides or appropriate areas for parents to pick up and drop off kids is the responsibility of the owner, and that's usually controlled through site plan process. But we know, and it states here, that compliance is actually varied. So if we're continuing with this process, are there any assurances staff can provide that compliance is somehow going to be improved during the site plan process so that we can mitigate these headaches going forward? So that's question one. How can we ensure compliance going forward? And then question number two is, can you elaborate a little bit more on the rationale for not seeming to be very willing to look outside the box here and really look at another opportunity where we can put in place some different approaches and help parents and help schools deal with some of the chaos of pick up and drop off. I don't know who I'm addressing to that specifically, but perhaps Ms. Banfield in terms of the process through site plan.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Hamilton, absolutely. So through site plan, there is a rigorous review, but that really helps with new schools. In many cases, we actually find the issues tend to be with some pre-existing schools. School enrollment does fluctuate, as do the preferences of some principals. So we do have, we meet with school boards on a regular basis. We, make them aware of concerns that we hear either through you or just through residents directly. There's many different things that we try to do. Sometimes it's some of the changes are alleviated with parking restrictions and those sorts of things. Every situation is a little bit different because every school is very contextual. However, we do work with the school boards often on, and certainly, as I said, with new schools, traffic studies, queue lanes, those types of things are definitely taken a look at staff, with staff during site plan.
If I can follow up through you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Whew, thought I was losing it for a second. Thank you for that. I wondered your advice, maybe your expertise, your opinion. I mean, again, for me, looking at new developments, new opportunities, new schools, to get it done right, to not put the onus solely on the responsibility of the owner or solely on the responsibility of the schools, the city has an opportunity here to enable and encourage and promote kiss and rides, drop-off, safe drop-off. Do you not think we should be looking at the right-of-way as an opportunity? Like, why would we take that off the table?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Thompson, to Councillor Hamilton. I think one of the challenges we face is that the size of the kiss and ride, the shape, all of that is really needs to be designed in conjunction with the site itself, the placement of the school, the size of the school, and all of that. And if we are just suggesting sort of a blanket right-of-way width without knowing any of those details, it becomes really difficult. It needs to be integrated into that whole design. And if we wanted to accommodate the entire drop-off within the right-of-way, the width of the school parcel might not be wide enough. We might end up having to take such a depth into the parcel that, again, it really impacts the design of the parcel. I think we face a number of challenges with the knowns or the unknowns that we have at the time that we're designating those right-of-way widths.
Okay, so that's more clear, and sorry, through you now again, Mayor Nuttall. That's more clear to me, and I guess what I would be looking for then going forward is if the departments can work together, because the carte blanche approach maybe I understand is problematic, right? So understanding what the right-of-way needs would be, because each school is going to differ, but when we get to the point of site plan again, then maybe we could be looking at right-of-way opportunities, right, to encourage different kids rides, depending on the location, the size, and all of that. So I just want to make sure that it's still an option for consideration as part of the site planning process, I guess.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Hamilton. So what that actually means, if you're looking at using municipal right-of-way for the school drop-off, would be using, even though the school is not a private property owner, but basically using city land to make a private property owner's project function properly. And that usually isn't what the city does. The city usually says your development has to work with the land that you own. And so while the city does allow short-term for private property owners to use city streets, as an example, you can get a ROA permit, a right-of-way activity permit to put your truck there while you're paving your driveway or things like that. The city usually doesn't, on a long-term basis, let a private property owner use city land to make their site function better.
Yeah, I guess in response to that, I would just say maybe it's time in these specific situations we actually look at doing that, just considering some of the headaches that we experience on a day-to-day basis with all, and maybe I'd love to hear from other people, because this is an issue in my ward for, I would say, all of the schools. So I don't know, to close the conversation, I just think I'm not ready to quite close the conversation. I don't have a motion I'm putting to put forward, but maybe we'd be interested to hear from other colleagues around the table and maybe to have an offline conversation with staff going forward to really look at how we can, again, mitigate some of the current headaches we experience with respect to school pick-up and drop-offs, because I do see this as an opportunity in new developments to avoid what we've done in the past and look at new ways of doing things. I have one other question just in relation to item number C, if I may, through you, Mayor Nuttall. Let me just pull it up here. So this was to do with the multi-use pass, but the summary of the active transportation. So part C and D. And it's noted here that on Collector Street, cycle tracks are the standard and will be implemented for new developments where engineering submissions have not been made. And otherwise, if engineering submissions have been made, we would be going with the street buffered bike lanes. So obviously the preference is for the street cycle tracks, but I understand, if they're at a point in time in development, it's almost too late, which again is unfortunate. Can you let me know what's the idea of how many engineering submissions have not been made? Like what proportion in those new lands are we looking at in terms of the opportunity for cycle tracks? Is there still a significant opportunity, or have most engineering submissions been made when we would be restricted just to the buffered bike lanes?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Hamilton. Actually, at the top of page 4 in the memo, we talk about how in the Hewitt's secondary plan area, about 76% of the collector streets have already passed that milestone. So there are limited opportunities, but there are still some. In Salem, it's a much lower number. Only 27% have passed that milestone, so there's much greater opportunity in the Salem area. Sorry, I don't have that in kilometers, but we could certainly try to work.
No, that's great. It was just different language, engineering submissions versus what you said, draft plan approval, and I wasn't sure if those are one and the same, and it sounds like they are, so that's great. A bit disappointing that 76% in Hewitt's has already been submitted, so that really does minimize the option to move forward with cycle tracks. So again, as we look at other words, we're trying to retrofit sidewalks to encourage active modes of transportation, and we had a prime opportunity in new developments, and it sounds like we're still not going to get cycle tracks. So unfortunate, but I see the reality here. So that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. I'm now going to go to Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Not necessarily a question, but I am happy to see that in the report it indicates maintaining the current lane width at 3.5 meters. Because I did have some concern that was even being considered, because obviously we live in a community where a lot of people have recreational trailers and such forth, and they're actually wider than a vehicle, and obviously it would have an impact on our transit buses getting around the city. But I just want to put a little bit of color on some of the school-related right-of-way questions that Councillor Hamilton just brought up, and this is where I really do believe in the staff report, because I've seen it firsthand in my own ward, where that additional space doesn't actually make it work. And that's the Holly Meadows School, right beside the Peggy Hill Community Center. Just over the past 2 years, I've been starting to get complaints, because not only are they using the dedicated kiss and ride that's in front of the school, but they're also using the Peggy Hill Community Center as an undesignated kiss and ride, which has caused a whole other host, because now you've got one parking lot with 2 exits, and now you've got another much larger parking lot with 2 more exits, and it's been posing a whole other set of issues around pedestrians walking down Ems Drive and things like that, and everybody seems to be in a rush nowadays and not paying attention, and we've had some close calls with kids. So I'm not necessarily sold that providing more space is going to solve our problem. I think there needs to be some better education, and I think everybody needs to just slow down and take their time, and if you choose that you need to drive your kid to school, then take that extra time, and you're not going to be able to get in and out quite as quickly as you probably want to. But so that's where I'm not so sold that giving more space is actually going to solve our problem.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Corser.
Yeah, to jump on the bus when it comes to the school drop-off zones. I live in a school drop-off, or live across from a school, and as I've ranted and raved before about it, I see it every day, and it is dangerous and it is ridiculous. I wonder that when the time comes and these new developments in these schools are implemented, can we take this and I understand why it wouldn't be a blanket idea across all developments, but could we do it on a case-by-case basis where a school is set to go into a development, or is it too late at that point? Because we're going to have, to Councillor Hamilton's point, we are still going to have school drop-offs because the Simcoe County School Board has the bus consortium has a 1 kilometer radius to a school for a bus drop-off, for a walk to bus distance. So I don't know about most parents aren't sending their junior kindergarten kid off to school to walk like almost a kilometer to school by themselves. And to double down on the safety issue, one of the biggest holdouts for parents allowing their kids to walk to school is the safe streets and safe roads and areas that we can actually let our kids walk to school, feel comfortable and confident in doing so. And I think that really plays into having some kind of a proper, safe kiss and ride or laneway or parking area at schools. So though it may not work for all school zones, I'm wondering if we can do it on a case-by-case basis. Sorry, that's through you, Mayor Nuttall, to, I guess, Ms. Banfield.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser. Our transportation planning and traffic services obviously work very closely with many of you about the safety around each school, and there is certainly a toolbox of different things that we can use. Hearing this conversation this evening, that there may be some appetite from council on a case-by-case basis to consider using city property in some capacity to help. We can certainly add that to our toolbox if it and any sort of direction on that we would come back to council for, but we can certainly add that to the toolbox.
So that wouldn't have to be a motion or anything like that then?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Corser, most times when, as I said, private property owners want to use city land, we would work very closely with our legal department to make sure that we have the agreements in place for that to take place, and those agreements do come back to council.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Thompson, and then I'll go to Councilor Morales after that.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Ms. Banfield. All schools, when they have permitted and everything, they go through site plan approval. And so to Councillor Corser's point, the school that she's referring to had a site plan approval to enter in off Ann, to exit off Letitia as a kiss and ride, and they don't abide by their site plan approval. What are the penalties or what can be done from staff?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Deputy Mayor Thompson. So in this case, and I can certainly action it kind of later this week, but usually when we do hear that a school isn't conforming to their site plan, the first thing we do is pull it out. Some of the site plan agreements are quite old, so pull out the site plan agreements. Sometimes those older agreements are slightly disappointing in terms of what we think we can actually enforce under the site plan agreement, and again, it just depends. But we'll definitely pull out the agreement. We can look at what those conditions are. As I said, we have a close relationship with the school board, so we usually then have like a staff-to-staff discussion about what's happening, what we're hearing. Sometimes the counselors go out and meet with the principals, which I know a lot of you have. Our traffic services team will go out and then try to work with it. So it really just depends on what the site plan agreement is. If there, as I said, is something from an enforcement perspective, we'll do that. Sometimes there isn't, but we still will reach out to the school board to try to rectify the situation.
And just to follow up, Mayor, so I understood the concern in giving more to Councillor Harvey's point about like more isn't always better and because it isn't used for that. And I think a lot of the reasons why the schools don't is because if heaven forbid anything ever happens on the school property, the liability falls upon the school. So by using city property to facilitate that, I think we'd actually put ourselves in a liability as if kids were being dropped off and heaven forbid anything ever happened. So as much as I know it's a concern, I just don't know if it's the avenue schools. Like the school needs to contain the children on their property with drop off and follow their site plan, but I don't think that we should get into our property and, you know, picking up the liability where they choose not to.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. my colleagues have touched the school zone, so that's been said, and it is important. Just some time capsule. Councilor Harvey, I know you moved a motion last term on this, so you kind of started the discussion a while ago, and the fact that we're still having it means it's important. To staff, the standard for cycle tracks the standard for cycle tracks is going to be separate cycle tracks, not combined cycle tracks. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councilor Morales, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. So as a follow-up, so in cases, that's a standard, but in cases where it makes sense to do combined cycle tracks, not separate ones, cases such as less right-of-way acquisition, less impact to the existing area, operational savings, less driveways, maybe there's less driveways on one side or none, and there's quite a few on the other side, it's a possibility, combined cycle tracks could be considered, it's just not the standard. Is that a correct interpretation?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councilor Morales, that's correct. Our first preference would be to put unidirectional cycle tracks on both sides of the road. Where that's not possible, we would look at other options that would fit.
Perfect. Thank you.
The
and,
context.
Yeah, and that's really important because I think doing the right thing where we can on a case-by-case basis. Another question about the patchwork. I noticed the word patchwork was a bit in this report. Basically, the overarching theme is we want to do it as uniform as we can consistently and avoid patchwork where necessary. But similar to my last question, in situations where it is possible to do patchwork in those Phase 2 Ward 9 subdivisions that have yet to come to detailed engineering, or those Phase 2 Ward 10 ones, or Ward 7, in a case-by-case basis, is that still an option, considering many factors that maybe separate cycle tracks can go in those areas, even though around them there may not have been?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councilor Morales, absolutely. We would still consider them. This report, what it says is that that's one of the considerations. So we're not saying that we would not implement cycle tracks, which may result in a patchwork. We would still consider them and look at it on a case-by-case basis, and it could still make sense, for sure.
Thank you, Bala. Mayor Nuttall, I want to thank council and staff for humoring me in delaying this memo by a month plus. And what I mean by that is I think having had a good conversation with Bala earlier, a lot of that could or is not possible to do cycle tracks on a patchwork basis or these questions. It allowed me to get to a point where I can really appreciate this report. There was another one, for example, but I'm not going to ask it. Councilor Harvey asked it. I was really stuck on, in some areas, it makes sense to go to 3.3 on arterials. But Mayor Nuttall, actually, and I wrote here kind of my comments what I was going to say, I actually took a step back instead of fixating on what I didn't like to get an appreciation of what we have here. And the reality is what we have here is a report that is going to ensure all the new infrastructure that gets built in Barrie gets built to a standard where people aren't dying from getting hit by vehicles and they're out of the way. And that drivers themselves can focus on the road without having to worry about these people. It's multiple factors, and it's keeping people safe in vehicles. It's keeping pedestrians safe. It's keeping cyclists safe. If everybody, if you have the report in front of you on page 7, that's the best image, that draft one. It is the cycle tracks are going to be 3 meters away from asphalt, so from the vehicles. That is quite a safety improvement, actually revolutionary. And not only that, but then on page 8, we're going to have intersections. And I know, Mayor Nuttall, this is going to draw a lot of interest to this one. We're going to have intersections that are on par with some of the best standards that some of the Scandinavian countries use, which they're always revered as having some of the best kind of intersections and bicycle infrastructure. And again, if you don't ride a bicycle, that's great. But you're going to have your lane back and not have to worry about bicycles and cyclists. If you're a cyclist, you're going to not have to worry as much. So these standards and where this report got us to is incredible. And while we're here, because of a lot of people, Mayor Nuttall, staff, my fellow councilors, and I say that, for example, thank you, Councilor Rima, as recent as 2 weeks ago, you've emailed me some feedback on this. I know Councilor Corser, this has always been a priority, and a lot of other people. But I also I'd be remiss, Mayor Nuttall, if I didn't acknowledge you specifically. And that's because I remember coming to you, probably February, March, and saying, I want to reduce the right-of-ways. And you said, no. You said, go do your homework, relax there. And if you hadn't done that, Mayor Nuttall, if you had let me be the impulsive person I usually am, the motion would have failed. The motion would have failed, and we wouldn't be here where we're going to provide the safest infrastructure Barrie has ever seen. So because you essentially tempered me and made me do the work, you saved the motion from dying. You then empowered me to do the hard work, go do the work, go do the research, go meet with staff, go talk to your colleagues. And most importantly, you didn't allow my enthusiasm to be my own worst enemy, which, as we all know, my enthusiasm can often be my own worst enemy. And Mayor Nuttall, I don't think that without that empowerment and kind of the guidance you gave me, I would not have gone there to that point on my own. And now stepping back and appreciating this policy, we have a real tangible policy instead of a 100% drafted in my vision but failed. And that's huge for everybody in the city, including the North End, because this is now, as Councillor Hamilton said, going to be a foundational framework for you guys. So I'm very proud of this motion. I obviously share the concerns of some of the school zones, but I think it's a great thing to appreciate. And I think it speaks to how productive we've been as a council, not just with this motion, but the reason we've gotten so many things done, and I know other councillors are working really hard on their own projects, is because of that empowerment and guidance that you're giving. So definitely spoke more than I thought I was going to speak, but there's more to just this motion. It's also the leadership you've provided and the support from staff.
Thank you, Councillor Morales. And team game, we got a good team here, and we're moving forward, which is always full of potholes, excuse the pun, but certainly trying to do the best for the city. So, are there any other questions or comments after Councillor Morales? Councillor Hamilton.
Sorry,
I don't know why I pointed.
Am I allowed to speak again? Sorry, through you. I don't feel great about the school drop-off yet. I will just say my level of comfort is not great. It sounds like we're going to continue to do what we've always done, and we know what we've always done hasn't always turned out well in the school zone. So I'm wondering, just listen to what Deputy Mayor Thompson said, and gosh, I'm going to call you Councillor Harris too, Councillor Harvey, and realizing we don't want to, put the city at risk and take on additional liability, giving up our lands. I do wonder if there's opportunity. I know the safety committee is looking at, again, strengthening relationships with the community board and looking at the crossing guard program. If we can include in that dialogue conversations to look at how do we approach pickup and drop off differently, and can we look at off-street kiss and rides, such as at a down the street park or something where parents can park and we can ensure the safety of kids getting off the school property onto the park. Like, there's got to be other things that we can look at. So I'm just wondering if we can somehow make sure this is part of that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually almost put my hand up to speak out there, but I think, Councillor, during the infrastructure, just going to community safety, but as the infrastructure chair, maybe it would be wise, because this is really the attachment of the city's infrastructure to the school board's infrastructure, to draft a letter to that respect, both to the school board and to your counterpart, who's the chair of said committee, to ensure that it gets on the agenda as part of that. And I was going to wait to the end, if it's okay with you, I'll say this now, like the point you have on schools, like this is, it is critical. It really is, in the sense that I always go to the worst case scenario, and if you can imagine if there's kids who are either being dropped off or trying to get to school who have any sort of disabilities, like, we're literally leaving them out in the cold, right? And so this is unfortunately, it's too late for many places, but it shouldn't be too late for the ones that are not yet built. And so I hear echo, and we will take that to the school board. I'm not sure it needs an amendment, to be honest, but get it on the agenda and get it as part of the conversation. As you know, we're working really well with the school boards. Maybe we can find a solution we've never found before.
I like that. Thank you. I feel much better.
And Councillor, the real Councillor Harris.
Please stand up. I wasn't going to speak because there's so much good commentary has already been said, but the last exchange really did spark my interest in. These are school underlying drop-off areas. So and Deputy Mayor Thompson, I thank you for your sense. Okay, so we solve their problem, or the shared problem. Let's call it a shared problem. Who now becomes responsible? And if we create these situations, and the example about how it doesn't work, at Holly Meadow, with the Holly Center being there. You think it'd be, oh, just go in there, right? Which is now creates proper pedestrians coming out, multiple laneways being activated. So I really do think we're going down the right path with really getting into meeting with our partners at the school board to discuss this shared issue for our constituents. Because I've had this, schools on busy roads, Little Avenue, Mapleview. I've been on site with a school and experienced how the principal takes an active role in getting people in and out of the parking lot in the morning. It was interesting, right? And that was the on-the-move assessment we did with school boards and the health unit. And so fully supportive of getting our school board partners together to solve this problem. When we have the opportunity, like you've said very well, Councillor Hamilton, about new schools yet to be built, they've got to be built better. And Ree's an example about being proactive and using good planning on the right-of-ways. Well, let's make the best possible school drop-off situations, including making it easier to get there by car, by foot, and by bike. I mean, all those things, right? So anyway, hopeful that we can do this together, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Are there any other comments or questions? Then I will call the vote. All those in favor? And it carries.
Separate report.
A separate report has been requested, Madam Clerk. Is that being noted?
Yes, Mayor Nuttall.
Thank you so much. I have to find the second item. Here it is, LCS 015-23, the Lobbyist Registry, and that was held by Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll put it on the floor as printed, and I do have an amendment that staff report LCS 015-23 be amended by, in paragraph 1, by deleting the words contained in bullet number 5. So that would remove the words in regards to a government, and I can speak to that. After further discussion with yourself and the clerk, who obviously is the one that drafted this report, it's just basically a little housekeeping piece, because with a government being included in the definition of an organization, every municipality that we ever talk to or the province would then have to be part of this registry. And I don't know that that was necessarily the intent when it came to the purpose around having a lobbyist registry here in the city. So that's essentially the intent behind the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey, for the amendment. Are there any questions or comments with regards to the amendment?
Just a quick comment. So thank you for the amendment. I had similar concerns about how this might be interpreted around intergovernmental relations and some of our international relations with others. So I'm supportive of the amendment. Thank you, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Councillor Kunga. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And it carries. That concludes the items that... Sorry, the motion is amended. In regards to the main motion on the floor, any comments or questions? Then we'll call the vote on that. All those in favor? And it carries. Thank you for correcting my ways there. That concludes the items that were held. We're now at inquiries. Are there any inquiries from members of council this evening? Seeing none, we will move on to announcements. Deputy Mayor Thompson, do you have any announcements? I do not. Any other? Councillor Nixon?
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I just want to announce for those who have not marked it in their calendars yet that 2 weeks from this Saturday, November the 18th, the Barrie Chamber of Commerce Santa Claus Parade will be heading back into town. For further details and information, you can check any of the City of Barrie social media outlets, as well as the news section in Barrie Today. We have our own section in the paper now on the digital issue that you can check daily for events going on in the city. Right, Bob? Yep. And so, yeah, check it out. 2 weeks, a few days ago, I wouldn't have thought it was coming that close, but when we looked outside yesterday and today, it seems to be that time of the year. So come on out and enjoy it.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. 2 announcements. As you know, the Papa campaign has started, and while we were able to highlight some really beautiful work that was done. And thank you again to Ms. James Reed and her team for sharing the importance of the banners that are at City Hall. I would again like to compliment staff if you're down by the Cenotaph downtown, the poppies that are in the garden beds there. So that is noticed by, I would say, Legion members and other members of the public. And I think just a great compliment about how we are showcasing the importance around remembering our veterans and honoring our veterans and those in current service. So on that note, if you want to hang out with me on Friday, November the 3rd, or come and meet me, I will be in Ward 3 at the LCBO at 587 Cundall Street, supporting the Poppy campaign. If you've got time and you're able to volunteer, I know the Legion is looking for volunteers, but thank you for those that are donning your poppies and supporting that in different ways across the city. My second announcement, our women's hockey is doing well, and we've got a lot of games coming up. I will be at the East Bayfield Community Center at their home rink on Sunday, November 5th at 2 p.m. Looking forward to meeting members of the community at that game and congratulating the ladies on a pretty good start to the season so far.
Thank you, Councillor Kungl. Are there any other announcements? Councillor Morales?
Mayor Nuttall, on next Tuesday, November 7th, from 5 to 7 p.m., there's going to be a neighborhood meeting for 908, 920, and 926 Yonge Street in Ward 9 for a proposal of 2 12-story towers and 132 townhouse units. So anybody interested, please sign up through the website for that meeting, Tuesday, November 7th, 5 to 7 p.m. for Yonge Street in Ward 9, 2 12-story towers.
Thank you, Councillor Morales. Any other announcements? Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Since we're talking about Christmas, it's probably, I don't know if you were going to mention this, but probably timely in speaking about the Salvation Army's kettle campaign. I know they were having their grand kickoff. Unfortunately, because of my other full-time job, I wasn't able to attend, but I look forward to being at the kettle with many of us around the table, as we have done for several years. And for those that are watching, if you are interested in volunteering some time also, please reach out to Katie at 705-728-3737, extension 238, and she's the volunteer coordinator for this year's campaign.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Are there any other announcements around the table this evening? Okay, seeing none, I am going to do the announcement now. I know we have a council meeting later. I'll let you deal with it now, just in case we lose some folks going into the other meeting. So this week, November 1st to the 7th, is the Carbon Monoxide Awareness Week. The Barrie Fire and Emergency Service staff will be sharing information about CO awareness and fire safety at Home Depot at 10 Barrieview Drive on November 2nd from 2 to 4:30 p.m. and November 6th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. For more information on carbon monoxide alarms, please visit barrie.ca/fire safety equipment. The Rec and Culture Services Department has a number of planned events throughout our many rec and cultural venues this month. Some of the events include November 8th, the annual Mayor's Prayer Breakfast will be held at the South Shore Community Center, hosted by One Church Barrie. Diwali, the annual Festival of Lights, will be celebrated on 2 occasions at the South Shore Community Center on the November 4th and 11th. And as stated, the 74th annual Santa Claus Parade on November 18th, as well as, definitely most importantly, our Remembrance Day service on the 11th of November. The City of Barrie continues to seek public feedback on new action items to update the affordable housing strategy. A drop-in open house is being held on November 9th in the City Hall Rotunda at 70 College Street from 3:30 to 6 p.m. The online survey is open until the 13th of November. For more information, please visit buildingbarrie.ca/affordable housing. A couple of these are being covered. The next Community Safety Committee and City Council meetings will be held on November 8th, 2023, which is 1 week today. With regards to the circulation lists, are there any items on the circulation list that members of council would like to? Yes, Councillor Negussi.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I have an item on the circulation list that I would like to poll. I have a significant concern regarding the digital-only model of communication. As the chair of the Senior and Accessibility Advisory Committee, we discussed in our meeting that we have a significant number of senior citizens who lack access to the internet, smartphone, or computers. And according to our discussion in the committee meeting, there are about 20% of our senior citizens who do not have any electronics device or internet. And these folks are essentially left in the dark. And I believe that all our residents are entitled to have access to any information. Therefore, I'm referring this motion to the Finance and Governance Committee for conducting research on a printable communication options. And I'm going to read the memo as follows. Since we have a significant number of senior citizens in our community who do not have access to the internet, smartphone, or computers, I would like to refer memo A1 from October 25th, 2023 circulation list back to the Finance and Governance Committee for conducting research on a printable communication options. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a referral motion on the floor, which is from the circulation list to refer to the Finance and Responsible Government Committee by Councillor Negussi. All those in favor of the referral? And that's approved. Are there any other items? Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Yes, from the circulation list, November 1st, I have correspondence C10, and I look to that the correspondence from the circulation list dated November 1st, 2023 regarding the submission from Innovative Planning Solutions on behalf of Green World Construction, Inc., dated October 31st, 2023, concerning the report and master plan in support of a community infrastructure and housing accelerator order for the lands located at 175 and 199 S Road and 50 Wood Street be referred to Affordability Committee.
We have a referral motion by Councillor Harris to refer the correspondence from today to the Affordability Committee. All those in favor of the referral motion? It carries. Are there any other items on the circulation list the members of council would like to, or members of committee would like to consider? Seeing none. Okay. We've skipped past a bunch, which is great, and we'll move into adjournment. It's 8:10 p.m., and we will begin the City Council meeting. Are we ready for it already, or?